How are you? It's good to see you again.
I'm doing all right. It's good to see you as well.
Excellent.
We'll jump right in because we don't have a ton of time. So first of all, hey, thank you for doing this, but also absolutely loved your work across Breaking Bad all the way through Better Call Saul, The Mandalorian, and just about everywhere else you pop up. So it's great to speak.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here, and I've been very blessed to have some great opportunities over the years, but specifically and especially again this year, they seem to keep building, and it makes me very happy to do what I do.
It's great that I can share, like, I talk to my daughters about your work on The Mandalorian. I talk to my friends about, like, different groups, all these different people, but everyone knows you. So it's always interesting, either through Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. It's funny how the wide reach you have.
Well, I have daughters as well, and I kind of judge by them. When I read something that appeals to their demographic, I immediately call and say, what do you think about this? And if there's a scream on the other end of the phone, it's always pretty cool. They go, Papa, you got to do that. I know that, and I know that, and then they start informing me. I just finished a film with Ty West called Maxine, and I had gotten that script, and my daughter's like, "What are you reading? What do you think about? What are you considering?" I said, "Maxine." Oh, I know Mia Goth. She's my favorite. I know her first film, Pearl. Did you see this one? Blah, blah, blah. So it's nice to be able to cross demographics, and I think, and clearly it's been a key to a part of my success to appeal to the mass audience of different younger, older, and middle-aged demographics.
Yeah, and they all know you in different ways. Like, it's really impressive. But let's go back a little bit further back to the beginning. I'm curious, what got you into acting? Were you influenced by family or something you saw? Or was it, where does
my mother was a performer. My mom, Elizabeth Esposito, who became Lisa Foster, was an opera singer. So there was always music in my home, and always operatic music. My father was a stagehand that she met in Italy. He was a carpenter. So there was always a creative, artistic sense within the home. What got me directly involved was through the experience of them divorcing and splitting up. It was really economical. I wanted to help my mom. My brother and I were watching Gigantor one day, a television show way back in the early 60s, and thought a commercial came on, thought we could do that. And I was always interested in acting, but never knew how deeply or how far the interest would go. And as I started to do, Electric Company, Sesame Street, voiceover recordings, then Broadway intrigued me, live audience, and I thought that's where I would stay for probably the most of my career, because I loved it so much, because it was dark and cozy, and the lights went down, and you got a chance to shine. And when the lights went down in the audience, you put on your light and you lit the way. And so through the experience of doing 13 Broadway musicals, it gave me a discipline that is useful today. And theater still is my first love, which I will return to soon. But it also allowed me to know that there was more. And so the world of television allowed me to learn a different facility. Instead of acting for the last row of the theater, was to put it all, to bring it all and condense it all and allow the camera to come to you. And that intrigued me, to learn about filmmaking, television first, which is a little bit faster of a pace. You have to hit things quicker, so your facility has to become sharper. And then in film, which is an extended form that tells a different story, a director's medium, but something that allowed me to soar there as well, because that felt more like theater, bringing a character from a beginning moment to an end, although shot completely out of sequence, having to put the pieces in that sequence together in your mind to be able to have a continuum, and then trusting that director and editor would cut it together in a way that would make a full story, sort of like reading a novel in a way. So that's kind of a quick sketch of my beginnings and my love. And then I started to direct, and in television, second unit stuff, and Nero Wolfe back with Timothy Hutton, And then finally this year, I got an opportunity to direct a Better Call Saul, episode 6. I directed a couple of movies, which allowed me to feel like I'm telling the story. But more than that, allowed me to feel like the material that I was cultivating was, and I do it in a similar way to how I create a character as an actor. It's cultivating a full and complete story that many people can get wrapped around, be moved from one place to another within the telling of that story. And that can be inspirational, that can be historical, that can be, maniacal, all of these different parts that go into allowing people's imagination to soar through the vision that you present.
That's great. So I want to get into Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad a little bit. Do you remember the pitch that Vince gave you for Gus and what your reaction was?
I do. It was an interesting situation. I was encouraged to tape because Vince wouldn't hire anyone that didn't tape. I found out later that there were a number of really incredible actors who were chasing him for the role. I, at that point in time, really didn't want to audition anymore. If you knew my work, you knew it. If you didn't, you didn't. I'm right, then call me in. And so I was encouraged by Sharon Bialy, a casting director, to come and tape something. And her words were, you walk in the door, you're going to get the role, because he's already interested in you. And so it was a matter of me doing, in my humility, I love to audition now more than ever because it allows me to do my work today. At that time, I'm a working actor, but you're not working every day, and I like to work every day. So an audition provides me an opportunity to do my homework and then to walk in and see if that holds up, if it proves out, if the character works, if what I'm done to prepare is in line with what the writer or director was thinking. And so Vince's pitch to me, because I did want to speak to him before I said yes to anything, it was like, you have a villain of the week, which works. What are you looking for? Like, we go to a job interview and I'm convinced that I'm in the hot seat. Like, what can I do to provide my talent to get the part? And then the one thing that sometimes we forget is, what can you do to provide your talent to expand the part for me? Like, what can you do for me? Like, what am I going to do for you? And we, as human beings, we forget that because we want things so badly. So because I was in a position where I wanted to just serve the story, my questions for Vince were about Walter White, the story. What's the story you're trying to tell? And how can I advance that in a way that you didn't think of? And he wanted someone who could be the nemesis to Walter, not just the villain of the week. So you want a thinker, you want a guy with a life, you want to create a dude who really has a network and a family and his thinking and all that. And that was his pitch. And to me, that was great, because then I could say, well, here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to do Tony Soprano. I don't want to do I'm part Italian, by the way, in case you didn't know, Giancarlo Esposito. I don't want to do the mafia heavy who is stroking the little dog, little puppy. And, I don't want to do the stereotype, to simply put. I want to do something that's different and forceful in a way that people haven't seen before. And thus my attitude was to be, that affable guy who underneath it all was somebody else. And that all came out of me agreeing to do, I did a guest spot. And then before I got off the plane, literally my phone was ringing, will you come back and do another? And then they asked me to sign a contract. I said, no. I said, why don't you come to me after hiatus? And then they came back to me again after hiatus, and I said, let me talk to Vince. And they allowed that, and then I signed on. And I was really clear with Vince that I wanted to do something else. And he saw that. And then I read a stage direction over and over again that he wrote in the first episodes that I did hiding in plain sight. And so when they came back and offered me the contract, a whole conversation with Vince was hiding in plain sight. Like, I don't need to be explained what that means. Here's what it means to me. What does it mean to you? And that was it. I took that and ran with it, because that allowed me, my imagination to soar, to think, okay, how many people, like, what does Steven really do? Like, yeah, he's here and looks all nice, and he's got this little interview he's doing, but what does he do when he's not doing this? And so it allowed me to cultivate that as Gustavo, a guy who's a mastermind, thinks ahead of everyone else, really, really smart, but has an agenda underneath it all, especially and specifically in Breaking Bad. And that agenda is revenge, to take over because he can do it better, but also it's the revenge aspect of things as well.
So the murder of his lover, Max, seems to be his motivation. But if that didn't happen, would he ever have walked away from that life?
He had an opportunity before he got to that life, in my backstory, to run a nation. I mean, he was up the food chain in Chile. He didn't have to leave that life. He was a made man there who could have run the country. But he chose not to be told who he is. He chose to build his own empire. And so, would he have walked away from that life? No. Because he knew that world, and he was able to control that world. And so I don't think he was ever a person who thought there was any other path for him, to be honest with you.
And that him being the man, the quiet, nice manager, is that part of him, or is that completely an act?
That's part of him. We're all a lot of things. I choose to believe that he really does want people to be comfortable. I choose to believe, and through his relationship that you see with Mike Ehrmantraut, he wants people to do, not only to do for him and pay them what they're due, but also not to suffer. Right? I mean, I did this movie with, a director. I see his face. Wasn't Alfonso Cuarón, who I do want to work with, but another director who I had to leave, and he agreed to let me go to a certain time to go to a premiere. And the shooting's going over. Leon Ichazo, and the shooting's going over. It's going over. And I said, Leon, I'm expected on the press line. I have to go. And he said, "Are you suffering? If you are suffering, you must go." I freaking loved it. If you are suffering, then you must go. I said, "Well, I'm an extra in this. I'm way in the back." He said, "You are right. If you are suffering, you go. I see you tomorrow." And so Gus is like that. He wants people to fulfill their dream, which is why he cultivated so many different chemists to come and work for him and to pay them well for their time in service.
And he's very guarded, but yet he's a cutthroat guy. And during the scene at the wine bar, you see he kind of lets down that mask that at least we're used to seeing, and you see the kind of like gentler, more human, relatable side of him when he's connecting with the sommelier. It's very rare a scene to have him expose himself, but also a very telling. Can you break that down a little bit? And also, I'm curious, why does he walk away? Why doesn't he, why does it end with pushing the wine back and leaving the money and saying he had a call when he obviously could have stuck it out?
It's a beautiful scene, and so well directed by Michael Morris, and just a great episode because Gus has been through a lot. If you followed and tracked Gus from Breaking Bad into Saul, that you knew that he's a very different man in Better Call Saul, and that he's threatened by Lalo Salamanca, and there is a definitive threat on his business and his life, and he has to even get smarter, but he's a little more nervous about whether or not he'll succeed, which creates a vulnerability that can be expanded upon, which I believe I expanded upon. In that one episode is the open door, is the transitions within seconds of him realizing, first he comes out to a place where he hasn't been out in a long time, he's been guarded, he's been hypervigilant, and he lets his guard down because he can. The threat has been rectified. It's been I'm looking for a word, but he leaves himself open to having a conversation with someone other than in his own organization about wine and someone he likes, and there could be more to it. But it doesn't need to be. It's the whole action of, whew, I'm able to let my guard down, have a great glass of wine, have a great meal, talk to someone about art and traveling and other things. And so to me, it's a wonderful peek into who the other side of Gus that you're haven't been able to witness. And then realizing that it's not time. Why did he walk away? He's not finished yet. He's not finished. I mean, he's going into the world of Breaking Bad. Don't forget, this is a prequel. And he's not finished doing what he started out to do. And so very, very important for him to stop himself. You got to understand, this guy is in complete control of who he is. He sees himself not only from his standpoint, his viewpoint, but also he sees himself from your viewpoint. And so he's seeing all of it. He's that hypervigilant, that ahead of so many different situations. And so he can't allow himself to become that human being again. Not yet, not here, not now.
That's beautiful. I mean, I absolutely love the series, but that scene, it's like so unexpected, and it hits you as like he sheds that guarded, kind of Gus persona and just as relaxed, and it's like, and then you hope he can do more, and like, oh wait, no, that's it, back to business.
I really feel like for me, in a way, it's a crowning moment that is kind of hard to look at, because I relate so much to the Gustavo who's so AAA, and so he's a guy I'd follow. He knows we're going to take that door, not that one. And then to experience this guy and see it happen, on screen, that vulnerable openness, like he's a completely different Gus.
Mm-hmm.
You just see it on him, and you go, wow, that could be a really nice guy. He's having a great conversation, and whoosh, that chill, cold emptiness comes back, fills him up, and he's out the door.
Give me the chills, really.
To me, it's a beautiful thing to have the opportunity to play, truly.
And I want to touch a little bit more, but in episode 9, Fun and Games, you're meeting after Lalo's death. You have everyone there. It's a really heart-pounding scene. I think it's one of, in a scene full of heart-pounding scenes, I think it's one of the most, even though I'm like, why am I rooting for Gus? Yet I kind of am, because of his backstory, but it's a non-win show. But my question is, do you have a favorite scene with portraying Gus?
They're all my
favorite.
I'm so brutal in my attitude when it comes to thinking about a character who's so evilly triumphant but fails in the end. A box cutter is such a favorite of mine. He's unreadable. There's no words. Like, it's one of my favorites of Breaking Bad. In Better Call Saul, I have to say, this sequence at the bar is really allowing me to think it's one of my favorites in the way it's done, as a complete whole. But I do love this tension in 9. I think you're referring to him walking into the cartel.
Yes.
Yeah. When you said it, I can feel it. Like, the dude has to have eyes in the back of his head, and those eyes won't help him because he knows he's outgunned, outmanned, outarmed. And so what does he have? What's left? My hands are up. Check me, checks. He sees where are all the ways out, if he could ever get out. And he's humble, right? He's to rely on his humility. He has to rely on Don Eladio, and Hector's freaking out.
Yeah.
And he's got to sit there and go like be completely and if you remember, like Stephen Bauer is like a monster. Like he's looking at Gustavo, he's looking for the crack, and Gustavo is just stoic and chill. Like, why is he ringing that bell? You can ring that bell all you want. It's not true. This is why I did this. This is what's happening, right? Like, and they buy it. You know, and you know what I mean? I'm sitting there. You know how it feels like, Stephen, to have all eyes on you. Like, it's just that alone is intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
To have like 4 people just staring at you in a different way. And one looking at you like, because Stephen Bauer doesn't give up. He doesn't, right? And because he's the man. So Gus has to be deferential. He has to be humiliated in a way inside, but humble. He's got to be polite. He's got to explain it. He's got to give his reasoning, right? And in everything else, you can't see a bead of sweat on him. He's got to be absolutely appropriate. I mean, I remember when I came in, it's he's Juan Bolsa. He's so polite to every one of them, right? And you know where it's gonna go, because if you've seen the previous, he takes them all out. It's freaking great. Right?
Yeah.
And he's sweating, but he still doesn't lose his dignity. He still doesn't lose his composure. He still encompasses all of his compassion, understanding, right? And if he were to speak it in English, he'd say, well, of course he would think this, but it's because of this. Well, of course, I would understand that, but it's not true. This is what happened, right? It would be he's so well prepared for anything that comes his way. But I think part of the brilliance about what appealed to me about doing it is that somewhere in there, somewhere behind those glasses, he's nervous. He's nervous. You can never forget that. Like you read the script, I read the script. He's gonna make it out. No, he ain't making it out. In my brain, I walk in there, Gus is not getting out of this one. That's how I felt. Caged, trapped. There's no way I'm getting out of this, but I'm going to try until the bullet pierces my brain. I will try. Right?
Wonderful. All in the name of vengeance, too. It's evening the score once and for all. Real quick question, closing out, 3 words to describe Gus.
Comported, shrewd, mastermind.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for, 10 years of your work or so in the Breaking Bad world and everything else you do, but Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul especially.
Thank you so much, Steve.